discussion, where two brothers in Messiah come together to open the Word, to wrestle with its meaning, and to walk it out in real life. Today, we begin with the words of our Master, Yeshua, from Matthew 5:48. Therefore, be perfect, as your Father in the heavens is perfect. But what does perfect really mean? It speaks of maturity, completion, and wholeness, not flawlessness as the world defines it. It is the call to grow up in spirit, to reflect the full character of our Messiah, to demonstrate faith in the Elohim of Avraham, Yitzcahk and Yaakov, through love expressed in action. This is not a moment, but a journey, the lifelong process of being set apart. Together, we'll explore what it means to walk this path toward wholeness, maturity, and the image of Messiah. So join us as we step into this conversation, not as flawless people, but as those being perfected.
Shalom, 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 shalom. Here's the Most High. Hallelujah. For another week. Yes. It's good. Can't wait to get into this. Yeah. I guess what really stems on this is perfect. Everything really hinges on that one word. I was in Marble Falls last week, and this lady had said to me, she was just all like, we can't be perfect. And I was like, is that true? And I wonder, what is it? Is it true? Like, is it true that those the Father created it's impossible for them to obtain perfection? That's the idea that I'd say the world has and the religious system has. But I would think if we took things back to the scripture, what we find out, like we had just heard in the intro, the biblical meaning of perfection means something different. Because they often equate perfection with sinlessness. Mm-hmm. I think that's a mistake. Yes. That's a mistake, because it's going to say all have sinned and fall short of glory. Exactly. So, perfection is different. Yeah. Other than the intro, but it's saying that what you just said, it's not about being flawless. Something else to it that we have to look at, because he told us to be like the Father. Yes. And if we're supposed to be like the Father, then what does that look like? We talking about the supreme being. Yes. So it's like, when I look at that, looking at it, we're supposed to embody the character. Yes. Of the things that he has and he has shown to his people. He has given us a lot. And for me, I think it's simple. When we look at all the scriptures, from front to back, we was always called to be perfect from the beginning. From the beginning, no one was considered perfect in this generation. So, and we also have the Messiah that refers to that time. What the end times will look like. He went to Noah. Went to Noah. So we're going to be perfect people in the end. Exactly. That's good. Exactly. And I think just for the foundation verse that we're going with is Matthew 5:48. Therefore, be perfect, as your Father in the heavens is perfect. So I guess starting with the definition of perfect would be a good idea. I'd say that word in the Greek is teleos. Teleos and teleos, I say it actually is a pretty accurate definition if we were to go with even just the Greek definition. But we're gonna go ahead and take it back to the Hebrew, and we can do that using the Septuagint, and then from there we're gonna be able to get what words could have been used to translate teleos into something from Hebrew. Now, the cool thing about it is in Hebrew, we're going to have a couple different words to choose from. So I'm just going to make mention of them just so that we can have it. Most of us are familiar with the word shalom. Shalom is one of the words derived that it speaks to wholeness or completeness. Yeah. And we can break that into it's got two different 3-letter roots, one being Shalem, the other being Shalom, and or Shalem. And that's really speaking to, I'd say, bringing something to completion, even, or being whole in your character, in your heart. You also have the word taklit, And that's another Hebrew word, again, about bringing something to an end. Like when you begin something and then you bring it to be finished. But we're going to go with the word tamim. And tamim, I'd say, is the Hebrew word for perfect. It's an adjective, and it describes wholeness. Morally, we also know it speaks to maturity.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And I think that that's going to be in fact, if you use the word tamim in some places in the Tanakh, the word for maturity is derived from tam, which would be tamim. So really what we're going to see is that the word tamim, or in English, perfect, it doesn't really speak, as we talked about, as a person who's never made an error. This is speaking more to someone who has overcome those things, if you will. They've come to a place to where their behavior is now at a level to where they receive less correction. Another word is used for blameless.
Mm-hmm.
So blamelessness is one there. And I'd say this person has, or their reflection of character, like you were saying, is more like the Messiah than it was when we were in the world. So there are some things that they've let go of in order to grow. And I think that that's just a really easy way of understanding that this process, someone who was tam or tamim, would be, I think a good contrast is that whole Jacob Esau thing.
Yeah.
One, mature, he was able to look towards the future, wanting to obtain his birthright to do better for his family. The other, immature and short-sighted, wanting to say one meal is going to change everything.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like we could fall into that trap today.
Yes.
I love how you put that, looking into the future. That is a mature type of characteristic right there. If I do something and I'm looking at my actions saying, oh, and I'm going to question myself, how is this going to affect me in the future? How is it going to affect my family?
Yes.
How is it going to affect the people that I'm around? So a mature person, a person who we consider perfect in the eyes of the Father, will have those type of questions when they come up, when those type of things arise. Because we should always be looking to do the right thing, no matter what. We always have that saying, you always want to do something, you always want to do the right thing, even when no one is looking.
Yeah.
And so what is that? That's integrity there. So maturity and integrity, they run hand in hand, and we have to have both. Because I even asked myself, like, if no one is around me, worrying, his brothers and sisters, how is the people around me? Do they view me the same way that you do? Do they see me the same way? Am I being different? Am I being two-faced? Those type of things, because that's when maturity will kick in. You like, okay, I can't say this, I can't do this, I can't operate like this. How will my brother feel if I say obedience like this? I do think about those. I try to keep that on my heart because, and that's what's important when it comes to serving the Father, is just having a bond with brothers and sisters, because we keep each other accountable. And I know for me, even when we're not even around, because I'm always having, the Father on my mind, so there's people always on my mind, and we can really get into this because I actually like when the Messiah said this, is as if he went back and he got this from somewhere else, and
Yeah.
and like
It's a new thought.
yeah, and that's the thing, is it's really not. So if we was to go to Leviticus 19:2, and it says, speak to all the congregation of children of Israel, and say to them, be set apart. For I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am set apart. So when I bring this into my mind, when I read this, and he's telling Israel to be like him, embody the characteristics of him.
Yes.
Yes. And he's speaking to a whole nation, though.
Because it's plural. That verse is plural. So that we as a nation represent him. So
Yeah.
I was saying earlier, it's like we shouldn't just make it all individualism.
Mm-hmm.
We should have each other as a
Yes, and that's good. That's real good. I really like how you brought that out. And we have so many other places we can go to the scriptures and look and see that being perfect is like the blueprint. Like it. So when I looked at that verse, the first thing I realized in Matthew 5:48, that's the last verse in this chapter. But when you go up and you read all the way through it, it's like he literally gave us the outline of how to be a Hebrew.
Yes.
He even in there in verse 17 talked about the Torah.
Yes.
It hasn't went away. It's still here. So
You can still see the sky.
exactly.
Yeah, this is how I see it. It's like you said, unless the heaven and earth pass away, every day I wake up, heaven's still there. So I know the Torah still exists,
Okay.
and it still is pertinent command for all of mankind. And it's just like you were saying, it's like, why is it today that we look even at like verses the Messiah said, and we put brackets, we put time limits, and we limit the power of the word. We would just let it be as it is, and we would, like it says, be set apart.
Yeah.
It's not like it's this big complicated thing. It's a choice. But yeah, I didn't want to cut you.
Oh no, you good. You go ahead.
So when you brought up Leviticus 19:2, what I liked about it is that why would the master command us to do something that's impossible? So be set apart as Yah your Elohim is set apart. Today we would look at that with question marks. How could we? How could we? Well, what he's trying to tell us is that our completeness or our set apartness is based on our separateness. We need to be set apart from what? The ways of the nations.
Yeah.
Because if we don't find ourselves set apart from the ways of the nation, it'll slowly creep in and we'll find ourselves mixed. And when we mix the set apartness with commonness, is it still the we're a set apart people, but we cheer for the things the world cheers, and it's horrible. And we celebrate the things that the world celebrates, but it should cause us shame. That's going to be the thing that really speaks to the fact that we've mixed. And I think about the fact that this perfection is something that needs to be obtained over time, and it needs to be maintained.
Yeah.
With the same love you came in at the first is what you're going to need to still be there for you to endure. Because sometimes we end up finding out when we think we've obtained something, we give less. We don't put as much effort into it. And I think we find that out with everything. You get your car when it's new, you're loving it every single day. You're watching it. You don't even let somebody, you're doing one of those shines on it. Over time, I bump my door. Over time, I bump my door. Now I just care less. Care less. Oh, I got a dent. At first, I cared more. And the scratches, they stood out. Every little scratch, but over time, it diminished. And I think that that's what happens when it comes to our journey in this pursuit of perfection, because it is something. There's a part that you're responsible for. He does the washing. He does the cleaning. He prepares you to do the work you need to do. And it makes me think about Solomon. So it's in First Chronicles 28:9. It says, it's written there, as for you, my son Shalom, know the Elohim of your father. This is David speaking to his son, and serve him with a perfect heart. Well, that word right there, serve him with a perfect heart, is tamim. So we're seeing that he's saying to serve him with completeness, with maturity. And then he says, and with the pleasing life, the whole life, not just this moment, but all that you have. And it says from there, for Yahweh searches the hearts, all hearts, and understands the intent and the thoughts. If you do seek him, he is found by you. But if you forsake him, he rejects you forever. So I just see again that this perfection, or this complete heart, this total service, all my heart, all my mind, all my strength. This is not something that I want to let get below par. I need to keep it up, and I need to keep seeking. Why? Because there's going to be rooms in my heart where I may give over to something else. And we can see with Solomon being the example, the one hearing these words is a perfect example of this. Climbed to the top of the mountain and then fell to his death. He allowed compromise to come in and corrupt his set apart.
And that is something that the Messiah was trying to warn us.
Yeah.
He was trying to help us understand that when it comes to serving the Father, there is going to be a lifelong journey.
Yes.
It's not an age thing. Maturity is never an age thing. Maturity, I've seen it before when those who are younger are more mature than the older.
Yeah.
How is it that you are at a certain age, we can say, put a number out there, 50, 60 years old, and I don't think like that, in my 30s, and I should be referring to you as the elder, So maturity is a requirement. Maturity and integrity is a requirement for those who actually want to serve the Father. And then when we go to Psalms 19, and I love Psalms 19.
Yes.
It says here in verse, I love the whole thing. I'm just going to jump first straight to verse 7. It said, the Torah of Yahweh is perfect, bring it back to being. The witness of Yahweh is trustworthy, make it wise, the simple. Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. The Torah is perfect. So if the Torah is perfect, then Messiah is telling us to be perfect. What is it that's going to help us to get there? The perfection. Exactly. And then it goes on to say, verse 8, the orders of Yahweh are straight, rejoice in the heart. The command of Yahweh is clear, enlighten the eyes. So we see again, we are getting this from the Father. The Father is telling us how to make our heart towards him, a good heart, like what you brought out with what David was telling his son. Sounds like something that we should be teaching our children as well. And then it says right here in verse 9, the fear of Yahweh is clean, standing forever. So this Torah is going to be around his command ever. It's going to be here, clear and straight. Perfect. Exactly. And then it goes on to finish right here. It says the right rules of Yahweh are true. They are righteous altogether. So everything that the Father has given us, I think it was Yaakov. He says, I think it's 1:17. Matter of fact, I just go get that. Yeah. Because we see that it's coming from the Father. And Yaakov has something to say about this. And I think it's 17. It says, every good gift, this is Yaakov, James 1:17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. So the Torah from above?
Didn't it come down from above? Wasn't it written with the finger of the Father?
I believe that's exactly what happened. So when we are talking about perfection, we're talking about the things that the Father has given his people. And he has shown us how to walk and how to be upright and righteous in his eyes.
Amen.
And it says, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no change, no shadow of turning. So nothing's changed. So is it the same thing that the Israelites was giving on Mount Sinai when Moshe got done dealing with the Father? He came down and dealt with them. The same thing that he was giving them, don't you think he would be giving us?
Amen.
And like Moriarty said, if it's right for them, it should be right for us, right? So whatever it is that the Father is giving us and it's coming down from the Shemayim, from the heavens, I want every bit of it because I know all it's going to do is make my heart right in him.
Amen.
And that's my whole entire desire is to serve the Father in righteousness and truth. And then we go up to verse 4. And I love what it says here. It says, this is James 1:4 again. And let endurance have a perfect work, so that you be perfect and complete, lacking in naught. And I love right here. So it says perfect, but in some versions it says maturity.
Amen.
So that you may be mature and complete. So in order for us to be perfect, we have to be mature. And this is a lifelong thing. We don't wake up and it happens overnight. It's not fly by night. We actually got to put work into it.
Yeah.
There's no way you can just show up and say, I'm a doctor. No, you got to put work into it. You got to. Yeah. You got to put a lot. You got to get to that. And
Sleeplessness.
And all the things that we accomplish in our life, all the stuff that we have done. And we can look at that and like, I worked hard for that. There were late nights. There was a lack of sleep. We say blood, sweat, and tears. We did those things here on earth. We did earthly things
To achieve.
Yes. Can we have that same attitude? That same mindset towards the things of the Father. And I believe that we can, because this is not a hard thing to do.
And that's the thing, like what you brought out with James. He's talking about endurance. He says what the Father brought us, down, if we don't stray from it, we'll be complete.
Dang.
But like you were bringing out, what we end up doing, we can be complacent and we make like capitulatory decisions that cause what is important to get important. And if we go back to Psalms 19, where you were, verse 13 and 14 really highlight that. Because it says, also keep your servant back from presumptuous ones.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because all that perfect Torah, that clean, that straight, that true Torah can become crooked if I'm around people that are crooked.
Yes.
And I end up making decisions that cause me to compromise on righteousness. Maybe I didn't go out with them first, I could stand strong. But over time, they wore down my armor. Over time, they wore down my defense against their invite. And over time, I let maybe loneliness consume me. And now I'm in a spot to where I'm strong, but I'm naked. I've got no defense anymore. And these presumptuous ones have done what? They've ruled over me. It says, do not let presumptuous ones rule over me. Then I shall be perfect and innocent of great transgression. And we all love this. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing before you, O Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. We can't just quote this and think that it's just powerful. It's just a powerful thing to say.
Yeah.
No, I have to not be influenced by presumptuous ones. I need to have the Torah in my heart as straight and clear and true and not going astray from, like you brought out, it came down from him and I kept it in the same state.
Mm-hmm.
If he gave you the tablet, would you throw them on the ground or cast it behind your back? Or are you going to keep it tight, and preserve it? And that gets me thinking that humility comes before perfection.
Yeah.
So we need an imitation. We need, again, it's always going to be about something you imitate. There's a reason why Adam wasn't a baby. So we need to be able to imitate. So I go to Genesis 17:1, and the Most High Yah speaking to Abraham, and it says, when Abram was 99 years old, 99, Yahweh appeared to him and said to Abram, I am Ani Shaddai. I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be perfect. So we're talking about age earlier. This is the man who was 99 years old. And now the Father is telling him that he has come to a place to where he can walk before him in perfection. That's amazing. So why would we say today that it could not be done? When here is an example of who we call the father of the faith, the one we should imitate the most, our greatest example, the one who won the covenant. And yet the Father told him he did it in perfection. But I love what he does next. He says, walk before me, be perfect. And I give my covenant between me and you, it shall greatly increase you. The next thing he does speaks volumes. Abram fell on his face. And Elohim spoke to him. And we don't have to go over all of it. But he's going to go and says, pretty much the way I'm looking at it, it's the same thing he said to David. If your seed is like you, then this thing shall live on. I'll give this covenant to your seed, but we're going to find out that everybody doesn't remain. Right? It doesn't stay as whole as it should be. But the point was that Avram had the heart to make himself before Yah, to bring himself the fear of Yah, like you read from Psalms 19. The Torah is going to teach us how to put the Father in the right perspective. It's going to teach us how I need to put my leadership in the right perspective, my wife and then their husbands in the right perspective, because all of that is how you do Torah. If we keep trying to make it individualisms, we're going to overlook the fact that I can't love him and hate you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't serve you and not serve him.
Okay.
Serving you is serving him.
Okay.
And that's the part of this maturity to which we're trying to grow from. And if we don't find that humility first, it's going to be a problem.
Okay.
And humility must come before exaltation. And the Torah elevates us. We can read in Psalm 113. It says that Yah takes the needy and the poor from a dunghill and sets them up with the princes of his people. Why would he set us up there if we're not going to be like them?
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we miss the mark in thinking that it's not about our specialness. It's the fact that you have a heart that's willing to give your all for him because other people need it. You're not going to store it all back for yourself or keep it away. That's what hinders your perfection. It's pride. It derails our growth. And it makes me think about, it's actually in our core portion this week. It's in Deuteronomy 18. I'm not going to read through all of it, but he talks about when you come into, and starting in verse 9, he says, when you come into the land, you're going to come across all these different things. You're going to learn abomination. There's abominations there, but he's going to tell us not to learn it. That's the problem, not to learn it. Because in that land, they're going to be doing what? Acts the Father doesn't approve of. He's going to say that they're doing divination. They're using sorcerers. They're interpreting omens. They're doing rituals, sacrifices, ritually sacrificing their children. But then he sums all of this up and he says, when Yahweh your Elohim drives them out from before you, verse 13, be perfect before your Elohim. For these nations do listen to those using magic. Listen to, they give their ear to diviners. But as for you, Yahweh your Elohim has not appointed such. So I see that that's part of how we become perfect. We have to separate our behavior. We have to change our thinking. Because like you said earlier about the ones that are young but yet have mature, that's because their thinking is not on lowliness. They're thinking on things that have come from above. Because maturity, what we could sum it up to is practice, not just speech. You know, if you could do mature things, we will give you the position of maturity. But I got another one. I'll let you go over.
But yeah, because you go back to we refer to him as the father of faith. I'm going to try to drive this home. This is Genesis 26. You get 2 chapters later, and this is the father talking to Yitzcahk, Isaac, and it says, "And I shall increase your seed like the stars of the heavens, and I shall give all these lands to your seed, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed." Why? Because Abraham obeyed my voice and guarded my charge, my commands, my laws, and my Torah perfection. He was an example of how we are able to draw close and get that good relationship with the Father. And I just love how what you brought out about you loving me, you serving me, and serving the Father. We see Abraham did the same thing. He did the same exact thing. He even vouched for those who was in Sodom and Gomorrah, specifically his nephew. But then he overshot it. Yeah, at least let there be king. Exactly. Yeah. And the way that he did that, I just thought that was just so good, because we as servants of Yah, we have to understand that the relationship with the Father is just so special. There's no other type of relationship with any other, Elohim, like how Israel's relationship is with the Father. Yes. He died, he covers. Yes. God done things for us. He's opened the sea. Yes. He's taken down mighty nations. He told Israel, "I didn't choose you because you was numerous on the earth. You were few. I took this small thing and made you and created a way for you to do greater things." Because the way that the Father has always done, he's always chose the lowly, like you said. He's always went for the person that was at the bottom, because that's where we find the humility there. We don't, the Father choosing someone who's already set up, like you said, they already exalted themselves. They already up there. So do I want to exalt myself, or do I want to allow the Father to do it with me? And I think Yaakov said that as well. I forget what verse it was. I wish I could go to it, but he did talk about that in his writings, as in the Father will be the one to bring you out of what you said, the dunghill. Here, let's put it in modern terms, out of the ghetto, out of poverty, out of the most lowly place that you could think of, out of prison, but it requires a heart, like a true heart, to really want to serve the Father. If I don't have that heart that I truly want to serve him, and I want to say that, I'm serving of the Father, I'm the Hebrew, I'm this, I'm that, but my walk don't line up with it, it's going to be really hard. And that's where a mature person will understands, like, there's some things about me that I need to change. And we just have so many examples right here. Isaac was told, that he's about to get this is a blessing. They can, he said, to see the lands, all these lands, and it says right here at the end, and your seed of all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Where is the blessing coming from? It's coming from above. And it's because of what his father did. So can Isaac just do what he wants, or does he have to walk that same line?
He was given. Follow the pattern.
Yes.
Yeah, the pattern.
Just like how you brought out with David and his son Solomon. You know, and the blueprint is there. And I get sometimes it may be a little difficult to understand things, but that's when the Father will give you the ruach to understand those things, you know, especially through a good teacher, you know. So it's very important. Like when I look at the way that Abraham operated in his life and how humble he was and how he was a servant.
Yes.
He was, and let's not overlook that. He was a servant. And so if he was a servant, then it should be important for me to understand that I need to be a servant as well. Because that's where you find humility at. You know, where I was talking about cleaning the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Imagine being a leader, but you still cleaning the bathrooms.
Well, and the three messengers showed up. Yeah, just got a circumcision. You don't think that hurt?
Exactly.
But yeah, so you're the servant.
Yes.
That he ran. He
Uh-huh.
was sitting in his tent at the heat of it, but he got up to serve.
That's true servitude, right?
That to me is like that's putting yourself last.
Yes. I remember when I was in the military, you know, being a lower ranker soldier, you will always find yourself doing, you know, the grunt work, the ant work, you know, while leaders don't do as much. But I had a leader, he used to always be there with us and we did everything. So one of the worst things we had to do was called connex layouts. Basically, you go pull out all your equipment and you take account for everything that you have and understand we're in Texas. Or we're in the land where it's real hot. So he didn't have to do that. He could be under the AC, you know, chilling, but he chose to be out there with us. And he said something, and it always stuck with me. He said, I would never have you do something that I wouldn't do. And that right there just, now it blew my mind because I've never met anyone else like him in the military, a leader, you know. And those are the type of things that I want to ingrain not in me, but also in my family. You know, when we be cleaning certain things, I'm there with them. We finna get on this floor together and scrub this floor. We finna be outside picking those leaves together. We finna do these things together because I'm not about to put you in a position where I can just sit back and, you know, sip on my lemonade and let you do all the work.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very important for us to install that servitude in our children. Because once they learn how to serve, it'll be a lot more easier for them to reject the things that are in this world.
Yes.
Because it's not about servitude in that world. And yes, it's about me. I'm the center. I'm the main character in everyone's story, you know. So it takes a mature mindset to get to that point. And if I'm saying that I want to serve the Father, you know, like Abraham, like David, you know, like all the righteous servants that came before us, I know I have to strive for perfection. And like we said earlier, perfection is not flawlessness.
Yes. And I think just trying to drive that home, like what you were saying, sometimes when you do have that leader that you see sitting up or doing something else while you think you're doing on the grunt, this is where honor comes in. Because sometimes we forget that some people have already done all this labor.
That's true.
So we see them sitting up, we see them in a position of honor, but we forget that they've also humbled themselves to get there.
Yes.
And that's something that is overlooked when you are down at the bottom. You're like, look at me down here scrubbing, and then you have that awesome example of a leader who was willing to scrub with you. But sometimes all of them have done. Not everybody's willing to repeat that action. But when you do have someone who has given you an example, you become, I guess, a continuation of that thing that they started. They started, you will finish, and you will start, and so on and so forth. And I think that that's the point here for this journey towards perfection. If somebody teaches you in humility, you should also teach in humility, and so on and so forth. Because our children, sometimes they're just like, why, like you said, why am I doing everything? It's like, well, I've done it.
Exactly.
No, I did it for you. You know, there was a point in your life where you couldn't walk, you couldn't talk, you couldn't pick up a spoon. So all of those things I did for you. I changed you. I showered you. I bathed you. This is your love back for me is just give me a cup of water if I ask. You know, something simple like that. But you know, I took care of you when you couldn't take care of yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that's that honor. That's that wonderful repayment that children who are grateful for their parents, they can see that. And that leads to that act of perfection. It's something that they've seen and now they can imitate.
Yeah. Imitation is very, very important. And I do love how you brought that up. I think sometimes we also got to look at leaders as well, is that they have done so much work that by the time they get to us, we ain't got to do as much because they didn't get a lot of it as.
The heavy lifting is how I do it.
Yes, yeah. You know, and even like when it comes to, you know, our teacher is looking at all the things that he teaches us. It's like I would just rather take what he had and reteach it. So I don't got to reinvent the wheel. He already did that.
Yeah.
You know, and
he'd often say ice cream. He said there's 31 flavors. So, but it's all ice cream.
yes.
So the idea is like what you just said.
Yeah.
If it's already good, keep it good.
Yeah.
You know, but you can also add some enhancements. You can add in your cookie crumb. You can add in, but that's what perfection is.
Yeah.
Perfection, if you're building on perfection, it doesn't diminish. Like we're saying in the beginning, the standard never drops. Walk before me, be perfect. It's the bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from that point forward is like you gave your 10%. Now you do your 15. Now you do your 20. You know, you're going up and up and up. So because, you know, who's giving all? No one's giving all.
You know, the one with the 2 pennies.
Yeah. Oh, but one person did, right?
Uh-huh.
Because even the master to marvel.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that there is an opportunity to always increase. Perfection is about the growth. And I say the excuses, they come in to give us an opportunity to justify doing less. But you don't know how they treated me.
Yeah.
You don't know how they looked at me.
Man.
You don't know what I've been through. It's like, okay, well, have you suffered onto blood? You know? So there's so many times we allow what the world does to us to give the Father less. It shouldn't be that way. And that gives me an example from Matthew. It's in Matthew chapter 19. And this to me is what hinders us from being perfect. We think about this a lot. But it's that whole idea of the rich young ruler. So if we go from like verse 16, I'm really want to get to verse 21. But the rich young ruler individual it's recorded a couple different ways. But excuse me, he calls Messiah a good teacher. And he says, "What shall I do to inherit everlasting life?" Uh-oh. We don't want to go there. But the Messiah then answered him and said, "Why do you call me good?" And he says, "But if you wish to enter into life, guard the commands." Guard the commands. So is he just saying be perfect? If you wish to enter into the kingdom, be perfect. What's perfection? Do what the master has commanded us. Keep the instructions. But sometimes we get too robotic with it. And we're going to find out that's what I think this individual had done. He said, "You had heard it said, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, shall not steal, bear false witness, respect your mother and father, love your neighbor as yourself." Summed up the whole Torah right there. And then he said to the rich young ruler said, "I've watched over all these. What do I still lack?" Then the Messiah, he went after his weakness. Because that's the thing. Sometimes we think we're giving it all, but we're holding something back. And the Messiah said, if you wish to be perfect, like you think you're doing it, but there's one more thing I'd like to teach you. And he says, go and sell, this was to this individual, go and sell what you have and give to the poor. Then you shall have treasure in heaven. And come and follow me. He was giving him an opportunity to increase. But what is it? Earthly matters can weigh us down. And we see that with this young man, he says, when he heard the word, when he heard that, what did it do? It exposed his pride. This individual wasn't humble. And it says that he went away sad. He went away. So here it was. One thing you lack. He didn't come at him saying there's a million things that he needs to get corrected on. He's like, there's this thing that I would like to teach you, but you're going to have to humble yourself in order to receive it. And he couldn't. It says he went away sad, for he had many possessions. Then the master would then go and say, it's hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And I think that really what it comes down to is that when you have an earthly gain, these earthly matters, that's what can hinder us from becoming perfect. Those are those things that cause us to become complacent. Friendship with the world is enmity with Elohim. And unfortunately, that's the ones we want the closest. We want our bosom buddies. And I'm thinking, like, is there something in my life or in our lives that keeps us from becoming perfect? Is there that one thing that if we were to just let it go, that we would realize that's what's hindering us from going further in our relationship with the Father? And furthermore, I can see that we do struggle like that rich young man, because he was able to walk in the instructions of the Father, but yet there was something in his heart he was holding back. And I just think that that's something we need to have exposed in our life. There's something we can hold back and still be, in some way on the court, still rounding the bases. So was it greed? The lust for his possessions? Like what could it be for us individually that may cause us to have something in a higher position in our heart than it should be? Those things hinder us from being perfect. That's why when people say you can't be perfect, what it really is I'm not willing to give it all. I'm not willing to die completely to myself. I only want to go so far. That's not the way we should be. I think there's statements about being hot, nor hot, nor cold. So the idea is we got to find out that this change and this process, he still had an opportunity to turn. We don't know what the end of the story looked like, right? But the same thing will be for us if we examine ourselves.
I think that's, again, we're talking about perfection, we talk about maturity, but examining yourself, because that is something that we have to do on a daily or even weekly basis. What I like to do is when I get to the end of the week, when I get to Shabbat, I try my best to try to remember, what did I do throughout the week? Father, be pleased with every single thing I did the whole week, the whole entire week.
Every interaction.
Yeah, and with the way my mind works, I won't be able to remember everything. But for the most part, I'll be able to remember the highs and the lows, the things that really got me, the things that really caused me to get emotional about things. How did I handle those things?
Yeah. It's funny you said that. I was just thinking something similar, like a scorecard when I was at the shop before I got here. So I like that, like a recap.
Yes.
Did I lose my cool? Did I fall out of perfection?
Yes. And then, in the world today, we call it Monday morning quarterback. You go out, you perform, the next day you examine. Is that something that I can do, on a weekly basis? Can I examine my week and see where did I go wrong? And I have to do that because I'm around a lot of people at work, and I deal with a lot of people at work. So I'm like, man, it even get me at night when I go lay down. Like, I should have said it like that. I should have did it like this.
Yeah.
And the reason, before it wouldn't have been like that. For me, I can speak for myself. It would have been, oh, I should have said this, or I should have did this. Next time I see this person, I'm saying this, I'm doing that.
Okay.
But now it's like, how can I have had a better resolution with that person? What did Mama G say? It's about the resolution, not the victory, or something of that sort. We're not seeking the victory. We should be seeking to try to resolve things and our problems in our life.
Conquer the situation, and we should try it. So we should work together.
And that's the important thing that I like to keep on the forefront, because first, I don't like to be in any type of drama with any. I don't want to be coming to work and this person don't like me and all of that. I've been willing to go to someone and talk to them. Now we always gonna have that people who don't talk about it. They want to continue to be in conflict. And it's like, there's nothing you can do about it.
Pretend like it never happened.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that
either.
Let's deal with what happened, because it's going to come up again. And it's going to happen again.
Exactly. So let's prevent it.
Yeah.
So there's something I want to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I feel like it lines up with what we're saying about perfection. So even though that situation didn't go ideally, like it went well, was it still perfect? Were you still perfect, able to stay in a place of perfection the whole time? Even though you think you could improve on it, were you were still perfect?
Yes. So
Mature is what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So like, let's say if something was to happen,
Okay.
and like, let's say today, all right?
Okay.
And I'd be like, oh man, I dropped the ball on it.
Okay.
The next day, can I go and fix that?
Okay.
Because that's the end of it right there.
Okay.
Because remember, it's not about being flawless.
Exactly.
So when I get over here and I fix that situation, that was the maturity. That was the perfection in it. I dropped the ball, but now I was able to come over and pick it up.
Okay.
So that's kind of the way I look at it. And as long as I didn't sin or do anything like that,
Exactly. There we go.
as long as I didn't sin,
Okay.
then that's different. You know, if I can go back to that situation and get with that person and talk to that person or people, whoever it is, and be, you know, show humility in it. Because I really believe we living in a world where people actually notice that, because there's just so many things that are out there where so much negativity. We're getting to the point where we want to see something positive.
Yeah.
You know, we want to have positive interactions. We don't always go see those things on our screen. We want to see it on a daily day basis, because there's just so much things going on in this world.
You bring,
Yeah,
instead of giving somebody a place to go run to for perfection, or happiness or some sort of positive interaction, you be it.
Okay.
Let yourself be that refuge.
Okay.
Hey, I know if I go to Jedediah, he's always going to have something good to say. He's always going to be able to be in the right mind.
Yes.
And I think that that's where it is. Like, if we make ourselves those citadels of truth, people, you're gonna get two things that are happening. You're gonna repel people that want to have their ears tickled, but you're gonna attract people that want to. And I think that that's part of this idea, is like what you're saying. This, you, as long as the Father is saying the same, you get an opportunity to get back up. But I'm thinking more along the lines is that even if I fell, even if I didn't do as well as I wanted it to go, still held my maturity. I didn't lose my cool. I didn't insult. I didn't revile. I think the idea is like, what does mature look like? Well, I didn't repay reviling for reviling. I was silent before my accuser. I know if I opened my mouth, maybe it wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
But I was able to keep my cool. And I think sometimes that form of perfection is overlooked. That's amazing. What did I do? I blessed you when you cursed. That's what maturity should look like. That's what perfection should look like. And in this journey, I'm thinking like what you said is like, yeah, I may have had this interaction with my coworker. Maybe I let my emotions go. So tomorrow, if it happens again, I won't let my perfection. I won't let my anger boil over and feed under the surface to where I'm putting on a facade of calmness. I'm really a volcano. And none of those things to me are just these terrible things, but they are things that with maturity they become less frequent. They should not happen as often. And I think that's the thing. And there's a verse in Philippians chapter 3. This chapter goes so hard I can't really go through the whole thing. But what I wanted to go over is 8 through 21, but the punchline is verse 12. So Shaul is telling us that he's obtained something in the Father. He's obtained the knowledge of the Messiah. It says he suffered, but all that he's gained, he counts it as a loss because of what he's found in Messiah. Even his own righteousness, he doesn't consider it, but he knows that in the Messiah, he has become more. But then he says this, verse 12, not that I have already received or already been perfected. This is crazy. We're talking about one of the wisest men who've ever lived, a disciple of Messiah, and he's saying he's not yet in this area. That's what teaches me is that it's like a multifaceted situation. You can look at this from different angles. You may say you are perfect in your brother to brother, brother to sister conversation skills. You can keep your composure. You can receive correction. But the moment you talk with your mom and your dad, I'm not perfect in that relationship. The moment I talk about my mom and my dad, oh no, I lose all my cool. I can't handle it. Or maybe I'm good with my mom and my dad, my brother and my sister, my friends, but then I lose it when I talk with my boss. Oh, I'm not perfect in that situation.
Right.
And we already know when it comes to husband and wife, those touchy places exist way more often than all those other relationships. You may be perfect in your boss, employee, mom, dad, brother, sister, but husband and wife, there's slacks. You make flats. I'm not yet perfected here. I may have received the Messiah's knowledge. I may have received all those things, but I have come not yet to perfection. And it says here, but I press on to lay hold. So that is the thing that gets me. It's like, so this is the journey. It's a constant growth. For me to want to be perfected in the things of the Father, I'm constantly going after more. I have not yet perfected it. Why? Because I have so many different styles of areas in my life where I get to do Torah.
You say more. What do you say?
What's more maturity?
Yes. Okay.
Not mature. No.
Okay.
Knowledge doesn't make you mature. He said it. He says he counts his knowledge as a loss.
Yeah.
His knowledge didn't make him mature, and often in the walk, I guess we could park there. That's the place.
And I want you to bring that out because you saying you wanted more in the Father, and we think that this more thing is just knowing Scripture,
reading more,
and reading this book and knowing this and knowing that. It's about the walk.
Yes.
Like, how are you treating your brother and your sister? How are you treating the ones that are around you? How do your family see you being in the covenant? You know, even though you could be doing everything right, they can still see you in a negative light.
Yeah.
But one thing they can't do is accuse you.
That's the point, and that's what the wise ones have done before us. When Moshe had the accusations come up against him, he's pretty much going to say, "What did I do against you that you can bring up against me?"
Yeah.
Samuel said the same thing. Whose donkey have I taken?
Yes.
You know, we could say even the Messiah. He's like, "Who made me a ruler and judge over you?" So there's all these different things that, like what you said, we should be blameless. That's what perfect is. And then he even goes and says, to finish the verse, I press on to lay hold of that for which Messiah Yeshua has also laid hold of me. And what is that? Therefore, be perfect. He wants the perfection. And we got to be honest. Can I make that something I want? Can I go and say, Father, I know the immature things in my life, and I want to let them go. I know what they are, and I'm choosing to hold on to them. I want to let them go. But then he goes and says, brothers, I do not count myself as the laid hold of it yet, but only this, and this is how you let it go. Forgetting what is behind and reaching out for what lies ahead. I press on towards the goal, the prize of the high calling of Messiah Yeshua. For as many are perfect, should have this mind. And if you think differently in any respect, Elohim shall also reveal this to you. What? The things you don't want to change. Because it starts in your thinking. Because your thinking is the seed of your actions. And we got to be honest about that. How many times do we ignore the good conscience voice or the leading of the Spirit of the Father? Don't do it. The immaturity in us wins, and we just wash that tiny flesh, and we let the flesh rule over us. But we should be wanting to press on towards the goal. And when I think about someone like Shaul, and I was talking to you about this earlier, we said we want to cross the finish line, right? But when you're in pursuit of maturity, the finish line just becomes another start.
Oh man, we did talk about that. That's powerful.
That's what it becomes. Like, you may have got that aspect of your relationship under mature control. Perfection.
Yeah.
But now you got to move on to the next one, because just because you could become mature in one area, or you have no problems in this relationship, you've got tons of problems in that one, and you're not addressing it. And we think we're fine. We're not. We need to press on towards the goal. Let's become mature in every area, to lack nothing, to be a blameless man.
We talked about that, and even with the Greek route, when you look at the people who are in the arenas, when they win a championship, they don't stop there. They win another one. They're going to say, let's run it back. They want to do it again. And so what are most of them going to do? They go, everything that they did before, they're gonna go do it again. They're gonna work hard.
Mhm.
And if they see, like what you said, the flawless in this area, I
Yeah.
can fix that. Now.
Yeah.
I know where I lack.
Yeah.
And that should be the same
That's what we
attitude
should
that we
do.
have in the walk.
Instead of overlooking it.
Yes, because it makes it harder when you overlook it, because now it's hard for me to build and maintain a good relationship with my wife,
Yeah.
my brother,
Yeah.
my sister, my children.
Yes.
You know, those who are within the assembly, I cannot make this relationship better than what it already is. It's because I refuse and I reject to change this one little thing
One
about me.
thing I lack.
It could be little, or it could be big. But if you take the time and the effort to actually go and look at it and sit down and deal with it, it'll change everything. Because it's just like every time I overcome anything that I was dealing with, it is just a good feeling. Because I can
Yeah.
look back on the things that I struggled with
And I
being
don't
recovered. Exactly.
Yeah.
I look at it.
Yeah.
It is a good
Yeah.
feeling.
Yes, it is.
Especially with those times when you may have been humiliated in something.
That's maturity. That's what it should look like.
Yeah.
You do. But that's what wisdom is.
Yeah.
But people they don't want to acknowledge it. You've never been through like I've been through. You never suffered like I've suffered. It's all like, brother, we've all suffered
in some type of way.
we've all suffered. But the idea is that thing you're still struggling with, the Father helped me get over.
Uh-huh.
That thing that you still lack, I can tell you because I don't lack it. And that's the thing that we're overlooking. That's an example. And we kick our examples away. We don't look up to people the way we should in the Father.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I would like, for us as the people to have that type of mindset, man.
Yeah.
And one day, it's one day that the Father, will bring us to that one accordness so that we can see that. The, the lack of humility, the lack of maturity that we have within the body of the Messiah, it shows everything. And we've been dealing with this mature thing for what, like a month now?
It's been a while.
We've been dealing with it for a while, and for us to be able to bring it out with this was a good topic that was chosen. And I just hope that, whoever listening to it can at least glean from it,
Yes.
And then most high willing, we can continue to apply these things to our everyday life. But, us as being servants of the Messiah, continue to love one another, to care for one another, to forgive one another. Yeah, that was
Bring joy to each other.
Exactly.
Forgive one another, serve one another.
These are the things we said every Shabbat, and I said,
honor.
yes. And it's important for us to have that mindset, because that is the way to perfection. Yes. Read Matthew 5 all the way through.
Yeah.
Read it all the way through until you get to verse 48, and it's going to make a lot more sense.
Yeah. And I'm filled with those thoughts that David gave Solomon. Serve Yahweh with a perfect heart and with a pleasing look. For Yahweh searches the hearts and understands the intents of the thoughts. If you do seek him, he is found by you. But if you forsake him, he rejects you forever.
Hallelujah. Praise Yah.